Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to have here my friend Luke Edwards, my fellow mischief maker, my teammate on Fresh Expressions US. And I would love for him to introduce himself the way he likes to be introduced. So, Luke, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Luke Edwards. I am the Associate Director of Church Development for the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. And in that role, I help churches in Western North Carolina to start fresh expressions and dinner churches. I am the founding pastor of King Street Church, which is a network of fresh expressions in Boone, North Carolina. Now that I'm at the conference office, I live in Huntersville, North Carolina, which is north of Charlotte. And I recently started a fresh expression called Who Let the Dads Out that I co-lead with a couple of dad friends. And we get together and do something fun with our children and invite friends with kids. And so it's dads and father figures and their kids come together and we do something fun once a month.
That's so great. I love it. I love the title. That's a compelling name for a fresh expression. Like, I don't know, maybe I need to start a Who Let the Moms Out, but you know.
There you go. Yeah. My 3-year-old is always making up things about, we could do a Who Let the Cats Out and stuff like that. So, yeah, we got it from the UK has a bunch of them. So I didn't come up with the name.
Yeah, the people from our future, right? They've been doing this for a minute, so we need to pay attention to what they're doing for sure. Yeah. I love it. Well, I look forward to our conversation today because we really want to talk about, what it takes to identify the people that can start fresh expressions and empower them to do that. What does that look like in a local church context? What does it look like in the wider community? And obviously between what you've done at what you did with King Street Church in Boone and what you do to walk alongside and coach leaders that are starting this and churches that are starting fresh expressions really have, I'm sure, taken you to a new level of understanding as to what this requires. So really, I think this is significant to the future of the church and our conversations about what it means to be church, certainly before COVID, but maybe even exponentially more coming out of COVID. We keep saying we're coming out of COVID, but, here we are, right? Wave 30 or whatever it is. So what would you do? What would you coach people or help people understand about what it takes to identify these people that are going to start fresh expressions in our churches and in our communities? What are your key things that we're looking for?
Yeah. So I think I would have two different answers depending on whether we're talking about someone in a local church or someone in a more regional job like that I'm in right now. As far as someone in the local church, so whether you're a pastor at a church or a layperson who's looking to identify others that could start fresh expressions with you, I would be looking for folks who, I've got just like a few markers of good potential fresh expression leaders. So, someone who likes to gather people. So someone who can throw a good party, who's fun to be around. The person that has cookouts in their backyard often, or is active in organizing. There's those people that are always throwing a baby shower for someone. There's just people that are really good at gathering a group. And if someone has that gift, they can probably start a fresh expression. Also think about people who already kind of live with one foot in the church and one foot out.
Yeah.
Because I think, it's an essential skill of starting a fresh expression is being able to connect with people outside the church. And if you're fully engulfed in the church, you can teach yourself to step out of that kind of comfort zone. But if you can find someone who already is living, like I said, with one foot in, one foot out, then that can be a lot easier adjustment for them to go out and start a fresh expression. So I think with that, I look for someone who can, communicate their faith simply and also demonstrate a compelling faith. Like I don't think you need someone that can help someone understand the intricacies of the Trinity or predestination or something
So yeah, okay. So they don't have to have. I think that a lot of people disqualify themselves, right, by thinking,
totally.
well, I've never read the Bible from beginning to end. Okay, well, there's an opportunity. However, that doesn't disqualify you. I mean, let's talk about the apostles. I mean,
right. Yeah. Unless you're going to start a fresh expression at Harvard or among NASA scientists,
right.
you probably don't need to know the ins and outs and intricacies of apologetics and all that.
That's so good. Yeah. I think, if you're starting a fresh expression in a college town with the academics, okay, that's one thing, right? But all the professors or whatever, that's one thing. But that's not context is important.
Yes.
As well.
If you're starting it with philosophy professors or something, you probably want to be pretty well versed in all those intricacies. But I think for the most part, people want to see someone living a compelling life, a life full of meaning. And so if you're doing that, other people are going to want to know why, and they'll be interested in learning from you and talking with you about it. So.
Okay, so you're saying they have the ability to gather people. Just that natural ability, and we all know people like that, right? They live a compelling life. They have 1 foot in and 1 foot outside the church, and that is they have the ability to really live in both of those worlds. Because what happens over time is, many of us who have been in the church for years, we tend to find ourselves surrounded by church people, right? And the point of starting Fresh Expressions is to create spaces for people to gather that are never going to necessarily be a part of our existing churches, right?
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say that you don't have to have all of these skills either. You have to be able to bring together a team that brings together these skills. You might just have one of them, or you might have none of them, but you have a vision and God's called you to it, and so that you hey, I'm not all that great at gathering people. I better find somebody that's good at that to be on my team. I haven't thought a lot about why my faith is compelling. Well, maybe spend a little extra time kind of thinking about why you follow Christ and why someone else would want to do the same, That's
good. And then the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you could look around and say, whoa, all my friends are my church friends, right? Yep. But you might have some kind of a connection in the community that is that kind of that person of peace that's important to be a part of your fresh expression. Yeah.
Yeah. And it only takes one person like that to kind of jumpstart a fresh expression. So.
Yeah. So once you identify these people that are great to start, or a team, I think team is really, really important. And you identified that you don't have to have all of these markers, but having a makeup of a team that does, because if you want to go fast, right? If you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you bring friends with you, or so it's been said.
Yep.
So, trying to kind of get started and get going, and not bringing people along with you, I think is significant for people to consider along the way too. And what everybody brings to the table, because there's a lot of different relationships that those teammates can bring to the table too, that are wonderful opportunities. So once we identify these folks, how do we empower them? Because I think, like I said before, I think a lot of people disqualify themselves, right, to some degree or another. Probably more so in the church than outside of the church, if that's kind of odd. But so say a little bit about, what you've done along the way to empower people to start Fresh Expressions.
Yeah. So I think you have to help someone kind of envision what it could look like. And you can do that a few ways. You can share stories, share books, share videos of others who are doing Fresh Expressions. I think the Fresh Expressions journey, the 6 circles of how to start Fresh Expressions, I think that is helpful tool to help people kind of picture what the process looks like. I also think often the people that I've worked with will be drawn more quickly to a replicable model of fresh expression, like dinner church or
Yeah.
messy church or pub theology or um, who let the dads out, like that was something that someone else has done that, I still have to think about my context and how to adapt it to my context,
Right.
but it's a little bit more copy and paste. And that can be helpful for a lot of folks in our churches that like the fresh expressions journey with a wide open slate with a blank canvas can be kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
And so a more kind of replicable model can help someone dip their toes in fresh expressions a little quicker, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So, after you kind of create this, help them envision what's possible through all of these different means that you've listed. What does it look like to I guess walk alongside them in that time? Because as you said, it can be a little bit intimidating to start, depending on the personality or the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to walk alongside them so that they can be feel empowered along the way without without you being a frankly, you could be an obstacle, right?
Right.
Yeah. So talk a
Yeah.
little
So
bit about that.
yes, there's a few things. I mean, one, um, if you feel like it's someone that you can just send out and then just regularly check in with them, I've done that where I'll offer some training at the beginning, 3 or 4 weeks of training, and then send people out, and then just regular check in once a month, either a text, phone call, lunch, coffee, something like
Hmm.
that. There's another thing too that I found really helpful. I learned from Brian Zare, and it's a apprenticeship model,
Hmm.
and that can be really helpful too. Where um, it's I guess 5 steps, and you're helping a person that you identify. You apprentice them to start their own fresh expression, and you know Zare's model is for anything. It could be teaching someone how to lead small groups, or teaching someone how to be a youth pastor. It could be anything. But the first step is I lead, you watch, and then we talk. So you as the leader
Hmm.
are leading that fresh expression. So maybe I've got a friend that's been coming to Who Let the Dads Out, and I'm like, you could totally start one of these. So I say, hey
Hmm.
man, like I think you could start one of these in your neighborhood. And he's like, yeah, maybe I could. And he's like, but, I'm kind of intimidated by the idea. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, let's go through a process of just thinking through what it could look like. And so I say, hey, next time we gather, watch me with a little bit more intent and see how I lead the group.
Hmm.
And then, so that Saturday comes, he watches me, and then we get coffee that next week. And I say, like, hey, what'd you notice about what I did, what I didn't do? Would you have done anything different? Like questions like that.
Good.
And so that's step one. I lead, you watch, we talk. And then the second one is I lead, you help, we talk. And so then the next time we have Who Let the Dads Out, I ask him to lead part of it. And to, 10 minutes of the hour and a half together, he's leading it. And then we get coffee that next week, and I say, hey, you did an awesome job at this part. You could have done a little bit more with this, or you might have missed an opportunity there.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it. You'll pick that up.
Hmm.
So that's the second step. And then the next one is uh, they lead, you help, and then we talk. So you say, hey, I'm going to be there next month for Who Let the Dads Out, but why don't you lead, and I'll just do the 10 minutes part of it,
Hmm.
and then we meet and talk and say, hey, how'd it go? You did really well with this, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, or I guess second to last one is they lead, you watch, and we talk. So they lead the whole thing, you watch, you reflect on it, and then Brian Zare will say to make it a multiplicative movement.
Yeah.
He looks for someone to mentor then. So
Yeah.
then you send him off in that example. He goes and starts his Who Let the Dads Out in the neighboring community. And then he looks for someone that he can apprentice. So
Yeah, that's so
from there.
good. I think that because there is a sense of, team there. There is a sense of, someone's there to kind of support me, that, and also you have somebody to go to. You have somebody that you can check in with. I think I've found with people that are leading Fresh Expressions something similar, in that they actually, after they have been identified, after they're doing their thing, there's so much that happens even with those leaders when I get them together. There's so much like peer coaching that happens. It's kind of remarkable. So being able to get folks together once we've empowered to do that, because they get so much from each other as well along the way, because it is this a new old thing that we're doing, right? And starting Fresh Expressions, and it can feel a little lonely sometimes.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the Fresh Expressions journey is helpful for those check-ins as well, too, asking like, hey, what circle are you in, or what circle do you feel like you're in right now?
Right.
Have you seen any opportunities to move to the next one yet? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. So, we're talking about, you talked about doing this from your position where you are now versus being in your position when you were in a local church context. So that being said, what would you, I guess, coach maybe lead pastors of churches to do in regards to identifying these potential leaders, as far as what their even regular rhythms are to continuously kind of till the soil for potential leaders for these?
Yeah. One thing that me and you have talked about before that you do really well is leading book studies
Mm-hmm.
kind of regularly,
Mm-hmm.
like once a year, maybe even more, on a
Yeah.
book that relates to Fresh Expressions. Because often, like there's a Sunday school class, or there's some kind of rhythm of book studies in a lot of our churches where you can not just talk about it, but then at the end be like, hey, like you were really jiving with this vision. Like, I
Yeah.
bet you could start one of these. And then
Yeah.
that person
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, maybe I could. So I think that's one easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Also just like, yeah, and it's another Brian Zare thing that he said, but just the I see in you
Yes.
conversation
Yes.
of just like, you've got this person that you just know would be good at starting a Fresh Expression. And so you take them out to coffee, or you catch them in the back of the sanctuary and say, hey, like, I've been reading a lot about Fresh Expressions. I've been seeing these cool stories about these ministries that are occurring. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you'd be awesome at this. Like, would you be interested in exploring this with me a little bit? And
Yeah.
just having those kind of conversations with people. And then once you start your first Fresh Expression, be looking
Mm-hmm.
within that Fresh Expression for
Yeah.
leaders too. That's what we did a lot with King Street Church was, we'd connect with the guy at the county jail, and he'd be a natural leader. And so when he got out, we'd say, hey, will you help lead this group over here? Just a lot of internal identifying of
Yeah.
leaders and developing leaders.
So important. I can't remember if it was at a conversation I had with you or somebody else, but I remember being a first time mom and reading a book, and the person that wrote the book, I think she'd been a nanny, and she made this statement that has stuck with me forever, and is start as you intend to go. And so there was that immediate attentiveness for me as someone that was starting Fresh Expressions to look for the person that was going to replace me, so that I could go do this again, right? And so there's that multiplicative nature or characteristic that you want to kind of bake into what it is that you're doing, that you're looking for the next person. Because to be quite honest, I mean, when we look at the characteristics of these entrepreneurial visionaries, they're not as evident in a lot of people as they are, as we would like them to be. And and so while you can identify some of these folks to start these things, as the Fresh Expression begins to mature and get to that place where you're exploring discipleship, right? And then we talk about beginning again, right? Church taking shape and then beginning again. That once you see yourself in that place in the journey, that you're doing all of those things that you named. You're doing all those things along the way to some degree, but that you're very intentionally doing those things, and And that's a different kind of a person, right? Once you have that church taking shape, you could have people that are not necessarily entrepreneurial, really continuing to lead that, while that entrepreneurial person, that visionary leader, is kind of released to start something all over again.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think just what you were saying made me think of a few other things too, that like when you're looking for someone that could start a fresh expression, looking for those entrepreneurial characteristics, like what have they started? You know, it could have been
Yeah.
they started a book club, or they started a company, or they started
Yeah.
a restaurant. Like all those are skills that will be very helpful in starting a fresh expression.
Yeah, serial starters. I think
Yeah.
sometimes they get a bad rap in the church, right? Because they've started so many things, but they get bored after a minute.
Yeah. You just got to find someone that'll keep carrying it. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
so good. That's so good.
And then the other thing I was thinking about too was we led a training with King Street Church, and part of what was important was to make sure that the people that were going through the training like just resonated with what we were trying to be and do. And so like we had a few people that, you know, they wanted to start a club, but they didn't want to start something with a faith component.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, like that wasn't really what we were trying to do. And so we kind of had that conversation. And then there was someone who wanted to start a pretty like fully developed like worship service right off the bat. And that also wasn't really what we were trying to do. So you kind of have to make sure that the person that you're investing in gets that vision, and not to discourage someone to do what they feel called to do, but you might say like, hey, that's really cool. I don't think that's what we're trying to do, but here's someone else that'll empower you to do that. Stuff
That's
like that.
good. That's good. And I know, I mean, as a lead pastor and as a even associate pastor, or you know, whatever that looks like in your particular denominational affiliation, you even preaching. I mean, preaching from the Book of Acts, preaching from, you know, Acts 11, Acts 15. What does it look like to you know, to be the Jerusalem church? What does it look like to be the Antioch church? What does that require of us as far as where we spend our time and devote our energy? So that really speaks to the, you know, 1 foot in the church, 1 foot in the world, the descriptor that you gave us earlier. That can be, when that really resonates with people, when you have people that come up to you after the message and say, wow, that really got me thinking about some things. Those could be potential you know, opportunities to identify leaders for these. And I know one thing I've done as well is kind of just interest meetings. You know, you guys have heard me talking about fresh expressions, come and see, and then sharing some of the, you know, like you said, some of the videos, and really challenging people to think about where they spend their time, or what their passions are, or what their affinity groups are, and where there might be an opportunity with some more attentiveness to start a fresh expression of church.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, me and you, we're United Methodist. Not all the listeners are, but
Right.
but we also both have like bishops that are behind fresh expressions, and that means something to our church members when the bishop is interested in something. That helps that too. So that's always helpful when the wider denomination or organizing body of your church is behind something, and that's more and more so. You can find evidence of fresh expressions in a lot of different denominations and traditions now, so you can point people to that, which can be meaningful too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they see the authority figures as being supportive of it. It can be a game changer for sure, for sure. So I think 2 questions I would love for you to answer is, if there was a word of encouragement that you would like to give to church leaders right now, what would it be?
I'd just say like starting a fresh expression can actually be really fun. That this doesn't have to be like suffering, like
or
that.
one
Like,
more thing, right? Or just like
yeah,
one more thing. Yeah.
yeah. That think about something that like you enjoy doing. Think about people that you enjoy being around, and go out and intentionally invest in those relationships, and think of ways that you can widen your sphere of people that you interact with, and just see what happens. And just, it also doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Start small. Like, Who Let the Dads Out right now is once a month. We took December off, and January off because we've been outside for our things, and it's been cold, and Christmas was crazy. So, just like, be easy on yourself. Don't feel like it has to be this crazy thing that is going to overwhelm you and take over your life. That Start small, build up, build a team, and have fun with it, and pray that the Spirit moves within the work that you're doing, and that discipleship comes, and be patient for that. Don't rush that either. So
just be you. Authenticity, I think, is a super important part of all of this, as far as what you intend to start, because it really does need to come out of who you are. And like I probably couldn't participate in the Who Let the Dads Out because I'm not a dad. Well, it's like I'd never start a motorcycle first expression because anyway.
Right.
But so what is giving you hope right now, I guess, in this, seemingly never ending COVID era that we're living in? Where are you finding hope? Where are you finding light?
I guess just seeing the creative people in our conference and beyond that I get to connect with, who haven't been slowed down by the pandemic. They've just adapted, okay, we can't gather people indoors. Let's buy a space heater and put a house church in our backyard and bring blankets, people like that are just rolling with it. I think, we've got house churches that have popped up in backyards. Like I just mentioned, we've got messy churches meeting under picnic shelters. We've got drive-through dinner churches and dinner churches that are outdoors, and people that are adapting, and the Spirit is working within them. There's a backyard house church that emerged during the pandemic, and they just baptized an infant the other week.
Wow.
And so there's just really cool stuff happening. It's not big, giant, full buildings with hundreds or thousands of people in them, but God's at work, and it's just really fun to get to witness it.
Amen. Yeah. So Luke, you just released a book. Remind me when that was. It was
maybe September, October. I should know that.
It was a labor of love, I know, but it's Becoming Church.
It took over my whole fall, so I don't know what the date was.
It's called Becoming Church. It's a trail guide for people that are starting fresh expressions. And the thing I love about this book is that it is so practical. Anybody can open it up, whether you've been in church your whole life or, just walked in the door, or maybe never even been a part of a church, can open it up and understand what Fresh Expressions is all about and what it looks like to be a part of starting one. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that awesome book?
I'll just say, I mentioned a few times the Fresh Expressions journey, those steps of starting a fresh expression. So I dedicate a chapter to each of those. So process of listening, process of building a relationship, building community, exploring discipleship, church taking shape. And I talk a little bit about what we've talked about today too, of identifying leaders, creating a multiplying movement, all that stuff. So it's, I tried to write it in a way that would be fun to read. Wouldn't be another boring church planting book, because there's plenty of those out there. So it's got the image of hiking the Appalachian Trail or Appalachian Trail, depending on where you're from in the U.S. It just goes through that image of a journey, because I think when you start a fresh expression, you're embarking on a wild journey full of lots of twists and turns and bumps and
some beautiful landscape views along the way.
Exactly. And relationships and community. And so hopefully it'd be a fun read for you, and you get some good ideas for your fresh expression out of it.
Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, here's a great book for you to do a book study with and potentially identify some entrepreneurial visionary leaders to start your fresh expressions and begin putting some teams together. So
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's a great note to end on. Luke, I know I'm looking forward to seeing you at the national gathering coming up. Going to have a lot of fun. I'm excited that we actually get to do it in person.
Yes.
In Virginia. And we hope to see all of you, all of our listeners out there as well. We look forward to getting to meet you and know you and moving forward on this Fresh Expressions journey together. Thanks so much, Luke.
Thanks, Heather.